Little interim update on my preparations for the Blomery furnace. I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, but a Blomery furnace is essentially a furnace which is intended to smelt iron at a temperature which is less than the melting point of iron, as opposed to a blast furnace which melts iron at a temperature which is higher than the melting point of iron, smelts iron. So it's kind of a low-tech system. Like I said, clay ring, essentially making a big can. There's my first bucket worth of clay. I have 3.5 more buckets of clay. I think that's probably enough to build what I want. I'm going to go up 3 or 4 levels at this diameter and then bring it in as a chimney. My ball mill is interesting. I was gone for 6 days and I just didn't produce that much ground up iron ore. Here's my bag of iron ore. And honestly, it's really quite finely divided. That ball mill does do good work. But in 6 days, I really didn't produce much more than I usually produce in 1 day. What I get is I go from this essentially I go from this to this, and then it just kind of stops producing dust. So I figure I have 2 alternatives. Number one, either my ball mill just isn't strong enough to break these, even though I'm using these really big balls now, or this stuff is just not breakable. And it might not be breakable because it's insufficiently cooked, or it might not be breakable because it's not iron ore. If I wash it off, it looks like it's still iron ore, at least to me it does. So I'm going to go with the fact that it needs to be baked. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start picking out these pieces that don't break. And I'm going to save them for later, and I'm going to give them a secondary bake and see if I can get them to cook. And meanwhile, I'm just going to continue on with this other stuff, which is more amenable to fracture, if you will. It's right after Labor Day. I have in a range of a month to finish this project. You know, the smelting of iron is something that a community would do together, so you'd have several people involved in this, and this is just me. So this is really a pretty major undertaking, frankly. Hope I can manage to make this work. We'll see, particularly in the time frame that I've got. On the iron ore side of things, if you will, my product to feed into my bloomery, I've been running my ball mill essentially continuously for the last few weeks, and I've been producing this, which is the powdered ore. I don't know, probably maybe 10 pounds there. I've gone through about 2/3 of my bag of roasted ore that I brought back from the outer limits. And what I've found is that I can get several ounces of ground ore a day, and I wind up with this stuff, which just won't break. So I'll be re-roasting that. I've decided that my problem is probably that it needs to be re-roasted. It's still magnetic, so there's still iron in it. One other thing, here are some balls from my ball mill. Despite the fact that they look pretty rough, they haven't lost weight compared to balls that haven't been through the process. So it's not like I'm just recycling steel when I finally get around to running this furnace. I should actually be able to produce iron from the iron ore. This is a little incremental update on my preparation of iron ore for smelting in the Blomery furnace. It's solidly into mid-September. I've been grinding this stuff since well before Labor Day, probably close to the beginning of August. I've been incrementally grinding this stuff. I switched from trying to continuously reduce the big pieces that just weren't going. Instead, I've been collecting them. I have 2 of those, and I'm just going to give those a refire. So I've just been cycling in new material. And it's been pretty effective. I'm getting Getting a fair amount of dust. That appears to be my average yield using this new process. I've measured that before. It's about 300 grams for every 24 hours, so that's really pretty good production. I have this much powdered ore, and just for the sake of verification, it is magnetic. So it's iron. So I have this big bag of ground iron ore. It really is a lot. It may actually be enough, but I'm going to get as much as I can. I have all this iron ore that I've been unable to reduce no matter how much I spin it. I've decided it's probably just inadequately heated. So in order to see if I can turn this stuff into viable ground ore, I'm going to fire up the big can and see if I can get this stuff to reduce. So as I said, all hail the power of the big can. Let's try this stuff. Brand new ball mill. I have to say it doesn't seem any more friable than when I put it in there. So I don't have hopes. I've got a lot of iron ore already if this stuff doesn't break up. You know what? I'm not going to let myself be offended, but we're going to give it one more shot, see if we can recover as much as possible. It's really kind of a familiar feeling. Just as a last demo, this is why I'm still interested. There's clearly a lot of iron left in this stuff. I've just got to break it up to get it out. So after nearly 2 months of ball milling, what I'm left with is 17.5 pounds of incredibly fine, dry powdered iron ore. That's going directly into my bloomery furnace. And you might remember I had 2 buckets of rock that I refired to see if I could get more powder out, and I did manage to reduce them to a little more than 1 bucket. So I got about a 50% recovery on that. I've still got some iron ore that I'm apparently unable to reduce, and I'll worry about that later. So this is as an interim update. I'm ready to put that in the furnace. I think I'm done with this particular conversation. I don't know what I'm going to do with these rocks. I'll figure it out. Got plenty of nice big balls ready to go for my next project, but honestly, I don't really have anything to ball mill right at the moment. Let's go ahead and just end this episode as one of the preparatory episodes to the bloomery furnace. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you want. Tell your friends if you want, and if you don't want, that's fine too. Thanks very much for watching, and have a great day. One last thing I wanted to show you is my crucible after baking my iron ore. As you can see, it crispied up the iron. The iron ore really kind of coated that a little bit. But what's kind of fun is all the broken rock that's melted, literally melted, to the bottom of this crucible. I can pull some of it out, but I managed to actually melt the rock. So that's kind of fun. That does actually bode well for my my smelting as well. See you later.